I worked double shifts at the diner, washing dishes until my hands cracked from the hot water and bussing tables until my feet ached so badly I could barely stand when I got home. Every dollar I tucked away went into an envelope hidden in my dresser drawer. My little boy, Tyler, had been talking for months about a shiny red bike he saw at the store window near school. His eyes lit up every time we passed by it. "One day, Mom," he'd whisper, almost afraid to hope. I'd smile and squeeze his hand, promising him silently that I'd make it happen. I counted and recounted the money night after night, whispering to myself that it was enough, that Tyler would finally have something new, something just for him. He'd never had that before. Everything he owned was either donated, secondhand, or handed down. But this bike, this would be his. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are you watching this video. The morning of his birthday, I got up before dawn, slipped the envelope into my jacket, and walked down to the store. The owner, a kind older man, smiled when I pointed at the red bike. "This one's been waiting for him," he said as I paid. I wheeled it out of the shop, the metal glinting in the early sunlight, and I swear my chest tightened with pride. Tyler's face would light up like fireworks when he saw it. But when I got home, the driveway was empty. No bike, no box. Nothing. My stomach twisted. I rushed inside, calling for Tyler. He was sitting on the floor, small shoulders slumped, his little hands holding the ribbon I had tied around the handlebars. His eyes were red, but he wasn't crying. He looked hollow. "Grandma and Grandpa took it," he whispered. The words punched the air out of me. "What do you mean they took it?" Before he could answer, my parents' voices carried in from the backyard. I stormed out, and there it was, the bike, shiny and perfect, except it wasn't being wheeled toward Tyler. My nephew, Ethan, sat on it, his legs too short to reach the pedals yet, while my parents stood beaming beside him. "Doesn't he look perfect?" my mom cooed, clapping her hands. My father grinned wide. "Finally, a kid worthy of riding something decent. None of that trash for our real grandson." I froze. "That's Tyler's bike. I bought that for him, with my own money." My voice cracked, but I stood tall. My mother turned to me, her face sharp as glass. "Your kid won't miss what he never had. Ethan deserves it more. You should be grateful we're not letting your embarrassment of a son drag it through the mud." I felt Tyler's small hand slip into mine, trembling. He'd heard every word. My throat burned, rage rising with every heartbeat, but my father wasn't done. "You should focus on feeding that boy, not spoiling him with things he doesn't need. Ethan's father, your brother, works hard. That's why his son gets the rewards. You? You're barely scraping. Bye. Don't think you get to decide who deserves what under our roof." The words landed like fists. Tyler squeezed my hand tighter, but I saw the way his lips trembled. He looked up at me with eyes full of shame, as if he believed them. That broke me more than anything. I wanted to scream, to snatch the bike back, to tell Ethan to get off and return it. But my parents stood tall, their smugness like a wall I couldn't break through in that moment. Neighbors from the next yard had stopped to watch, whispering as Ethan tried to wobble forward on the bike, while my parents clapped proudly. Tyler lowered his head. "It's okay, Mom," he whispered. "I don't need it." His voice was so small, but the words shattered me. I bent down, holding his face in my hands, forcing him to look at me. "You deserve the world, baby. Don't you ever think otherwise." But behind my words, my mind was already spinning, burning, plotting. My parents thought they could humiliate me, that they could crush Tyler's joy to build up Ethan. They thought they could twist the knife and I'd just bow my head. Not this time, not with my son watching. That day, standing in the backyard as my parents paraded Ethan on the bike I bought with months of sweat and sacrifice, I swore something deep in me snapped. I wouldn't scream. I wouldn't beg. I would show them, slow, calculated, and unforgettable, that taking from me and my boy came with a price they'd never forget. For days after the bike was stolen from Tyler, the air in my chest felt like it was burning. My parents carried on as if nothing had happened, even bragging about how Ethan looked like a champion on his new bike. They told neighbors it was their gift to him. They never once mentioned me, the one who worked until my hands blistered, or Tyler, whose birthday passed with nothing but a broken heart. At dinner that week, my father's voice boomed as he passed food around the table. "See, that's what happens when you raise a boy right," he said, nodding at Ethan, who sat proudly with his parents. "He gets rewarded, not like some kids who bring shame with every step." His eyes flicked to Tyler and the boy froze, shrinking into his chair. My mother added sharply, "We had to make a decision. Why waste money on a child who doesn't shine? Better to invest in the future." She patted Ethan's head as though he were a crown prince. Tyler sat silently, stabbing at the food on his plate, his appetite gone. I felt my fists curl under the table. They were doing this on purpose, not just stealing the bike, but crushing Tyler's spirit, making him believe he was less. That was their power play. That night, Tyler climbed into my lap before bed. His small voice was tired. "Mom, maybe they're right. Maybe I don't deserve nice things. I'm not special like Ethan." My heart tore in half. I held him close, whispering fiercely, "You are more special than anyone in this house. And one day, they'll regret every word." But as I rocked him to sleep, I knew words weren't enough. Tyler didn't need promises. He needed proof. The next weekend, my parents decided to hold a family barbecue in the backyard. They invited neighbors, church friends, anyone who could admire their perfect grandson. And of course, the centerpiece wasn't the food. It was Ethan on that stolen bike. They'd even decorated it with balloons, calling it his early celebration. I stood in the corner with Tyler, watching as my parents paraded Ethan up and down the driveway, people clapping like seals. My father's smug voice echoed across the yard. "This is what success looks like. A grandson who carries our name with pride, not like—" He didn't even finish. Everyone knew who he meant. The humiliation was choking. Tyler leaned against me, whispering, "Mom, can we go home?" I kissed the top of his head and held him tighter. "Not yet, baby." My eyes didn't leave my parents. My rage wasn't boiling anymore. It was cold, sharp, and patient. I started watching closely, paying attention to every little thing my parents obsessed over. Their pride wasn't really Ethan. It wasn't even the bike. It was how the world saw them, respected, admired, envied. They craved reputation like oxygen. That was their weakness. When Ethan's father bragged about how the bike had only cost $1,200 but was worth every penny, I almost laughed out loud. They were flaunting it as if they had bought it, as if it was proof of their success. My parents ate it up, smiling smugly as the neighbors congratulated them for being so generous. That night, when everyone left, I stayed awake thinking. My revenge couldn't just be about stealing back the bike. That would be too simple, too predictable. My parents didn't care about objects. They cared about appearances. They cared about respect. If I wanted to destroy them, I had to take the one thing they built their entire lives around, their image of superiority. So I started small. I made sure word spread at work and among neighbors that I was juggling 2 jobs while caring for my son alone. I didn't complain. I just let people notice. I let them see Tyler's quiet strength, how polite he was, how hardworking I was. Slowly, whispers began forming. Why would her parents treat her like that? Why ignore such a good kid? Meanwhile, my parents bragged louder, acting as if they were raising Ethan themselves. They made him ride that bike up and down the block every evening, waving like royalty. Tyler would glance at it sometimes, but his face hardened more each day. My boy was learning, faster than I expected, how cruel the world could be. One night, as I tucked him in, he asked me softly, "Do you think they'll ever love me like they love Ethan?" My throat burned, but I steadied my voice. "No, and that's why we don't need them. We'll build our own way." And that was when the plan came to me. If their pride was Ethan and that bike, then that was exactly where I would strike. Not by breaking it, not by taking it, but by making the entire neighborhood see the truth they tried to bury. I waited, patient, watching. My parents thought I was beaten, silent. They thought Tyler's shame had crushed us, but all it had done was sharpen me, because the next time they paraded that bike in front of everyone, I wasn't going to stand in the corner anymore. I was going to make sure every smug smile was ripped off their faces, and this time they wouldn't just lose a bike, they'd lose everything they thought made them powerful. The next barbecue came sooner than I expected. My parents were beaming, bragging to anyone who would listen that they had the most perfect grandson on the block. Once again, Ethan rolled out on the red bike, balloons tied to the handlebars, as if it were some trophy. My father's booming laugh echoed, my mother's smug smile cut through me, and neighbors gathered around like it was a parade. But this time, I didn't stand in the shadows. I walked right into the crowd, Tyler by my side, his little hand clutching mine. The whispers rose immediately. People had noticed us last time, and they were waiting to see if we'd break. Instead, I stood tall. "Nice bike," one of the neighbors said to my father. "Must have cost a fortune." My dad puffed his chest. $1,200, worth every cent. He smirked at me, daring me to speak. And I did. "That's funny," I said loud enough for everyone to hear, "because I bought it. With the money I saved from working 2 jobs." The yard went silent. My mother snapped her head toward me, her face pale. "Don't make a scene," she hissed. But it was too late. People were staring at me, then at Ethan, then back at the bike. I reached into my bag and pulled out the store receipt, folded neatly, with my name on it. This was Tyler's birthday gift, but my parents decided to steal it and give it to Ethan instead, because apparently my son doesn't deserve what I work for. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Ethan froze on the bike, looking confused while his parents sputtered. My father tried to laugh it off, but his voice cracked. "She's lying. I cut him off, shoving the receipt into a neighbor's hand. "Check it yourself. I paid every cent," while they sat on their recliners. The neighbor read it aloud. The truth was undeniable, and that's when Tyler spoke, his voice small but steady. "It was supposed to be mine. Mom worked so hard." His eyes were wet, but his voice didn't break. The crowd shifted. I saw judgment in their eyes, not for me, but for my parents. Whispers of "disgusting," "cruel," "how could they?" filled the air. My mother's smug smile collapsed into a tremble. My father's face turned red with fury, but there was no saving them. I stepped forward, my voice low and sharp. "You wanted everyone to think you were generous, but all they see now are thieves who humiliated their own grandson. You wanted pride? All you'll have is shame." My father tried to snatch the bike back, but no one moved to help him. In fact, one of the neighbors stepped forward and pulled Ethan gently off the seat, returning the bike to me. "This belongs where it was meant to be," he said firmly. I wheeled it over to Tyler, kneeling in front of him. "Happy birthday, baby." His face lit up, brighter than fireworks, and for the first time in weeks, I saw joy wash over him. He climbed onto the bike, wobbly at first, but steadying with each push of his small legs. The crowd clapped. Not for Ethan, not for my parents, but for Tyler. My parents stood frozen, humiliated, the power they'd built over years crumbling in minutes. Their reputations, their image of superiority. It was gone, shredded in front of the very people they needed to impress. And I didn't have to lift a finger to humiliate them. They did it to themselves the moment they tried to steal what was never theirs. As Tyler pedaled down the street, his laughter echoing like music, I glanced back at my parents. Their faces were pale, their pride destroyed, and for the first time, they looked small. That was the day I stopped being silent. That was the day Tyler learned he was worth fighting for. And that was the day my parents realized they couldn't take from me without losing everything they loved most, their power, their pride, their place in this community. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are you watching this video.